And Al Haymon tried the best he could to make the fight happen. But initially, Bud Crawford didn't agree to some of the terms. So Al Haymon and PBC, they had to basically revise the contract. They had to take out and add and include some compromises so that they can acquiesce and cater to Terence Crawford's demands to fight Errol Spence. That's facts. Don't take my word for it. Let's hear a credible, reputable journalist and reporter himself say it. Dan Rafael, in a recent interview that was just published no more than 24 hours ago, Dan Rafael spoke to both sides, Terence Crawford's side and Errol Spence's side. And let's hear what he said actually went down. Here's Dan Rafael in a recent interview.
Can't say for certain, but more importantly, it was dragging on, and Terence Crawford, for his own reasons, decided that it was too long to wait till February, which it really, if they had gotten it done earlier, would have taken place in November, which is something I had reported a few weeks ago. Yeah. He didn't want to wait until February, so he's had a contract for this Errol Spence fight sitting with him, I am told, since October 6th. That, again, from the PBC side of things, reflected changes that he wanted to be made that were made in a way in which PBC thought that they were on the same page with Crawford. Crawford obviously received that agreement, or his lawyers or whoever's doing the business on his behalf, wasn't totally satisfied with it. In the meantime, they then endeavored to make this fight with David Avanesian. So he was making the Avanesian fight at the same time that he had the contract for the Errol Spence fight, because it's not like you just snap your fingers and suddenly you have an Avanesian.
Yeah. Now, that was Dan Rafael. Now, according to him, Crawford had the new revised contract in his possession on October the 6th, nearly almost 3 weeks ago, to fight Errol Spence. But according to Dan Rafael, Crawford didn't want to wait until February of 2023 to fight, because he was already in negotiations, unbeknownst to the entire world, including Al Haymon, Spence, and PBC, and even Steven Espinosa, for that matter, the president of sports over at Showtime. He was already in negotiation with BLK Prime to fight David A. in December. So apparently Crawford couldn't wait the extra month and a half to 2 months to fight Spence. But that's not the real issue, because in 2020, he never mentioned Spence's name when it came to fighting him. Errol Spence was very definitive of basically fighting him after he fought Garcia, after he fought Pacquiao. Then it was going to be Crawford. And he fought Garcia, Danny Garcia, may I add. And he was about to fight Pacquiao until he discovered the torn retina in his eye. So, of course, he fought the new WBA welterweight champion in Ugas. Bam! The next fight should have been Crawford. And Crawford knew that. And Crawford came on to Brian Custer's show 15 days later and says, I don't know who my next 3 opponents going to be. I don't know. I just know that I should be fighting Pacquiao next. And I'm just focusing on fighting Pacquiao next. So once you wasn't fighting Pacquiao next, and then Pacquiao went on to fight Ugas instead of you, Terence Crawford, why didn't you say, since I didn't get to fight with Pacquiao, I want to fight Spence now? Because he already fought Garcia like he said he would. He was going to fight Pacquiao, but of course Pacquiao lost. And then, of course, the torn retina happened. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to basically interfere with that fight, and I'm going to fight Spence next. But Terence Crawford didn't say that. In fact, what he did say was the most makeable fights. He instantly agreed. Oh, Ugas, Porter, and Thurman. And I'll even add Kell Brook in that too. Oh, I can guarantee I can make those 3 fights with Ugas, Porter, and Thurman, even though they're with PBC. Even though they're with Al Haymon. Because he praised Al Haymon. He praised him in June of 2020 for the great work Al Haymon was doing and is doing with PBC and the PBC fighters. So then what's the problem? You're saying that Al Haymon is the advisor? You're saying that Al Haymon could basically listen to these fighters when they say they want to fight somebody and he'll go make it happen for them? So what's the problem? What's all the impasse for? What was all the stalling about? And on top of all of that, in closing, Terence Crawford himself said that Errol Spence was the number 2 welterweight in the world in this interview. So let's hear what Terence Crawford has to say when he's asked by Brian Custer to name the top 5 welterweights in the world.
Okay, Terence, it is time for a segment. In the last segment of the show, we call it The Last Stand. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, Terence Crawford. You give me the first thing that comes to your mind. You ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Pound for pound, who is the best fighter on planet Earth right now?
Terence Crawford.
Give me your top 5 welterweights in the world right now. Top 5 welterweights.
Don't matter the order.
Top 5.
Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia.
Nice. Who's the most overrated fighter?
Sean Porter. I got to say Sean Porter because Sean Porter beat Danny Garcia.
Okay.
See what I'm talking about? Brian Custer asked Terence Crawford, give me the first thing that comes to your mind. Give me your top 5 welterweights in the world right now. And what did y'all just hear Terence Bart Crawford say out of his own mouth? He said himself first, of course, Terence Crawford. Who did he say second? Errol Spence. Then he said Manny Pacquiao. Then he said Keith Thurman. Then he said Danny Garcia. And then he said, you know what? Porter beat Danny Garcia, so I'll say Porter. Isn't that amazing? In closing, isn't that amazing? That earlier in the interview, he said, which was 20 minutes earlier in this same interview, he said Ugas, Porter, and Thurman, makeable fights. He also said in this same interview that he think he should be fighting Pacquiao. I have a question for you fans. Please leave your answer in the comments section below. I have a question for you all. If Pacquiao is number 3 on Terence Crawford's list, if Keith Thurman is number, 4, because he mentioned him second, but 4 on Terence Crawford's list, and then if Sean Porter is named 5 on Terence Crawford's list of top welterweights in the world, then why would he want to fight the number 3 guy in Pacquiao, the number 4 guy in Thurman, and then the number 5th guy in Porter on his list? Why not go and fight the second guy that's on your list of top welterweights in the world? And that's the guy who has both of the titles, the WBA, all 3 of the titles at this point now, But the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF title. Put your answers in the comment section below. I would love to hear some feedback on that. If you're the top welterweight in the world, and the number 2 welterweight on your own personal list of top welterweights in the world is Errol Spence, and he holds 3 titles now. 3 titles. Why would you bypass him to fight Pacquiao, Thurman, and Porter, which 2 of those 3 fighters are makeable fights, like you said earlier. And then, of course, the third guy on your list, Pacquiao, is the fight that you really, really wanted, even since you and Pacquiao were both with Top Rank. Why would you skip over Errol Spence? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm closing with this. This issue that's been going on with this issue that's been going on with Spence and Crawford, it didn't just happen now. It didn't just happen 5 months ago. It didn't just happen 3 months ago or while they were in negotiations. I've discovered it. This impasse started way before the negotiations even began. Why? Because Terence Crawford said that Al Haymon was a great manager and or advisor. He's doing a tremendous job with PBC. He said that 3 of those PBC fighters, such as Ugas, Porter, and Thurman, were all easy, makeable fights without any interference. He said himself that the top welterweight on his own personal list, who was number 2 behind him, was a man who holds all 3 of the 3 out of 4 of the major titles, and that's Errol Spence. And then he also said that he should be fighting Pacquiao then. So basically, he knew all along, in my personal opinion, that he did not want to fight Errol Spence. Because if he did, he would have never skipped him. He never mentioned the makeable fight with Spence and how easily that fight can be made. But he talked about the stablemates of Spence and Ugas, Porter, and Thurman. Those 3 fights can be easily made. Just wanted to show you what I discovered. Please like and subscribe this video. And I want to thank all of the subscribers on my channel. And I appreciate all of your support and all of your feedback.